G'day guys, welcome. Today I have the very popular Karen Baldwin with me. Going to have a bit of a chat about what Karen's up to and where it all started for Karen. She's been in the game, flipping property and now doing a lot of development deals and that sort of thing for 10 years now. 76 deals, I think, in total on over 60 flips. So she certainly, has earned her stripes, that's for sure. And I actually had Karen as my first coach. So, I can definitely say a lot of what I know and a lot of what I learned at the start certainly came from Karen, and definitely me sending her a ton of messages most days in Coach Accountable, trying to learn as much as I could and cram it in as quickly as possible. But thank you for coming on and having a chat today, Karen.
Hi, Graham. Awesome. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And yes, you did ask a lot of questions, but it served you well, hasn't it?
Thank you. Yeah, it absolutely did. Alrighty. So, today I just wanted to have a chat. Obviously, it's been a little while since we've had probably a decent chat anyway. So it's going to be good just to, see what you're doing now. Obviously, we just had a little bit of a chat just now. You're building a bit of a holiday, away from home holiday house in Bali, which is it's pretty cool.
My passion project, yes.
Your passion project. So definitely looking forward to hearing a little bit about that. But just before that, a fun fact. When you were a cadet journalist with News Limited, you had an interview with a then high-profile TV gardener, and he hit on you. What was that all about? And I think I guessed straight away who it was anyway.
Yes, you did. Yeah, so obviously it's come to bear fruit in recent years that said celebrity gardener was a bit handsy. So, I had to interview him. It was as a cadet, and one of my jobs was to go interview this person. Along came the Channel 9 publicist. We went to an Indian restaurant for dinner, and he was pretty handsy, and invited me back to his hotel room for a drink, which I politely declined. So even then, there was quite an age gap, and then it's interesting. In recent years, it's certainly come to sort of widely known. It's become widely known that yes, he probably has he did have a tendency to be a bit like that. So I think I dodged a bullet.
And the reputation is So we don't even need to say who it is. I think
no, we all know who it is.
If you Googled it, if you don't know who it is, if you Googled it, it'll probably come up pretty quickly.
Correct. Yeah.
Alrighty, awesome. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing at the moment, Karen. Like, what have you been doing this year? What's 2023 been about for you?
Well, actually, it's just been a bit of a consolidation year for us. If I look back sort of mid-2022, I think we had 13 projects on the go, which when I look back at that, I think, well, that's just nuts. What kind of who does that? And that was a bit of everything. That was land splits. That was some structural renos. That was moving into the development side. So this year was certainly about, okay, well, let's consolidate. Let's get some of these projects finished and done and sold. Let's bank some coin. And I was probably a bit burnt out too. I'd been involved with a property group, as you know, for quite a few years. And I came out of that and probably a bit burnt out and coached like hundreds of people over the course of like 7 or 8 years. And I'd done a lot of speaking and things like that. So, this year was just sort of about, consolidate. So I feel good for that. And that's certainly allowed us work. We're down to only 7 or 8 projects now. But that's been good. We're now starting to really we've set our sort of strategy and our goals and things for 2024. We sort of always do that in November rather than waiting. So, so off the back of that straight away, we picked up a new deal last week, which is a development project in the affordable housing space. Scott and I are really big believers that affordable housing is sort of the good space to be in the coming years, just because we've all seen what's happening with house prices, serviceability, things like that. And so that price point just gives you such a good pool of potential buyers. So the one we just bought it's in a super high density zone, and we'll build 7 on there, 2-bedders, sort of priced in low to mid 500s. And the idea is that that's got some good profit in it. But as we're increasingly doing now with development stuff, we'll actually keep at least one of those for ourselves and start to build up a bit more of a portfolio, which is obviously the difference between developing and flipping. Because you flip, you've only got the one, and you've got to either keep it, all of it, or sell all of it.
Yeah,
So that's sort of what's been great, sort of, I guess, with us developing is we're starting to diverse a little bit and hang on to some stuff for sort of longer term wealth creation.
perfect. Who would be the buyer for that? Would it be more sort of first home buyers, or would it be?
Yeah, it could be anything. It falls within sort of a certain affordable criteria, so it could be anyone really. It's sort of, it is an income based type thing, but it could be, you know, downsizers, first home buyers, investors, singles. It kind of lends itself, you know, to two bedder on a pretty compact allotment. You'll still have a courtyard and stuff, but it's certainly not established family market. But I think, you know, established family market's a bit squeezed, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So, you know, we're trying to do our bit to help Albo hit his goal of 1.2 million new builds in the next 5 years. I don't think he's going to get within a mile of that, but yeah, we're certainly trying to do our bit.
Cool. So, okay, so I mean, obviously, what you've just been talking about. So, you've been more in the development space, and a lot of the projects that you've had on the go at the moment, the 13 or 14 projects that you had on the go, and then you've got them down to 7. So, a lot of those projects were, you know, you said there's a few structural renos, but a lot of developments. So you've obviously delivered a few of those projects now.
Yeah, got them off the books, which is great, and a few land splits. Got a bit hairy for a while there with land splits because, you know, a couple of years ago land was sexy and you know any old piece of dirt was moving, and then mid last year, I think it pretty well all over Australia, but we certainly felt it here in Adelaide. Suddenly land was on the nose and you basically couldn't give land away. So it got a bit hairy for a while there. I think at one stage we're holding, I think, 19 blocks over about 3 or 4. And then, bless him, our state premier, Peter Malley, June, July this year, and their budget brought out stamp duty exemptions for first home buyers. So that we basically moved more land, you know, in 3 or 4 months, and we'd moved in like 15, 16 months before. So it was good. So we've moved, but again, we've kept some blocks. We're sort of starting to move into, I think you guys call it HMO, but a bit of looking to do some boarding house, rooming house type stuff. We've got some blocks to work off that, but certainly the structural renos have been good fun. And we're just on the tail end. We're about 2 weeks away, which should have been finished 2 weeks ago, but anyway, it's another story. And that will be sort of our highest price property. That will have a 3 at the front of the asking price. Beautiful, big old, lovely gentleman's bungalow in one of Adelaide's best suburbs. So the structural renos have been great, and we've certainly still done well with them. So it's probably been a while now, a few years now, I think, since we've done a cosmetic flip. But certainly they're still always on the radar. I still look at units and things like that. Like I've always been a big fan of units. You know, some people think, but I started out, the guy I learnt from renovating actually he just used to do 2-bedroom units here in Adelaide. That was his formula. And there was a period there. So the first deal we ever did was a 2-bedroom unit. And then there was a period I got sick of doing houses. I was over landscaping and fences and guttering and roofing and stuff. So I think it was about a year that we did pretty well, just back-to-back units as well. So if there were
were the units harder to find because
it can be. It depends on the market you're working in. So certainly at the moment, you know, a unit in any kind of half decent suburb is going out the door anyway. So, and I certainly haven't targeted them with letters or things like that. But certainly if one dropped into our lap, we would do it. But yeah, of late, it's certainly been the structural renos, the land subdivisions, and then going through to the builds with some of them.
With the land subs, so did you get into that because when back sort of after COVID or during COVID when they brought in the grants, is that what made you go down that route? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it was just fortuitous timing. So we decided we wanted to go down this path. We bought a large allotment, I think it was 1,800 square metres here in a suburb right next to us, chopped it into 3, could have cut it into a lot more, but knew our market really well, established family market, so we kept the block still fairly big. And the week we got the DA on that was the week that ScoMo announced the Home Builders Grant. So we sold those 3 blocks. They all sold within like a week or 2. And I think we made like $200,000. And we're like, looked at each other and went, here's a formula, because, you know, back then we were having to pedal pretty hard with cosmetic flips, you know, to make 200. That would have been 3 or 4 flips back then to make that coin. Whereas supposed to do a 1 into 3, you know, we could count probably on one hand the number of hours we spent on it to make that sort of money. So certainly it served us well for quite a while. And then, as I said, and then land was on the nose. So we've had to pivot, but then, as I say, thankfully we've had a pretty switched-on government, that's state government, that's helped us to move it. So big shout out to Kelly.
I think the Australian government was chipping in the 25. Did Adelaide chip in the 20? Because in Perth, our government, anyone that built.
Yes, there was like 15s and stuff like that. So there was a lot of stuff floating around. But then I think just so many people, and we haven't had many builders fall over here in Adelaide. It's probably a handful of high profile. But of course, most of the media we consume is eastern states focused. So they're hearing of builders every week falling over in particularly Queensland and Melbourne and things. So I think that certainly made a lot of people nervous when there's actually no need to be nervous. But as we know, that's why I'm not a journo anymore, because I just think the rubbish that we get fed. I spent a lot of my career in finance and business journalism, and then in corporate PR. So it was my job then to feed the spin lines to people, so I know how it works. So it's just a case of you've done very well, and I've really admired what you've done, is knowing your market, right? So knowing it and riding it, and knowing it's not going to last forever, but really, I guess, having your wits about you, knowing your market, and then knowing when to pivot, when to change strategy, etc. So I think that served you really well, and it's largely served us well, although we did certainly get caught a bit short with the land stuff for sure.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think knowing your market and knowing, taking advantage of the market and the right strategy at the right time is absolutely, critical sort of thing. And like, in Perth at the moment, there's no doubt in my mind that, cosmetic renos is what you should be doing in this market sort of thing. That's where the money is. Because the most of the growth is at that lower end. So
but you guys are basically having almost 10 years worth of growth in the space of 12-18 months, right? So
it's
it needed to happen.
Perth's a bit of a funny market. We were hurting for a long time after the mining and stuff like that. We had a couple of year run in sort of 13, 14, and then went backwards again. So talk to me about how's the market been in Adelaide, and how, obviously since COVID, you guys have been, had a really good growth year last year as well. And this year, it hasn't been as strong, but you've still been in positive.
Look, we're still motoring. So I think we're about 50% up in about 3 years. Scott would say, we would talk about it, and then he would say it's like we're having a decade's worth of growth in like a year and a half, and that's basically what happened, because Adelaide's a very steady market. It doesn't have the peaks and troughs like Sydney and Melbourne. It's very much nothing happens for 10 years, then there's a burst of activity, and then nothing happens. So 50%, 50% increase in 3 years is not insignificant. So obviously that's why, for a lot of local people, interstaters still go, oh, it's cheap. And it's the same thing. What's basically happened is they've drifted over to Adelaide first, and now a lot of them are getting priced out of Adelaide, so now they're drifting over to you. There was a time there that pretty well everything that was being sold here in a reasonable kind of price point was being sold to buyers agents from Sydney and Melbourne, because they just have been so priced out of their markets. So, it was a good way to go. Look, it's been solid this year, again, steady without being spectacular, but I'm pretty confident. I'm a bit of a fan of the 18.6 year cycle clock. So my view is we've got a couple of years.
I don't even know what that is. Can you tell us?
Oh, haven't we had that conversation? No. Oh, okay. Well, I'll lead you down that rabbit hole one day. But I still think we've certainly got a good couple of years of not spectacular, but I think, if we could do 5 to 10 every year for the next couple of years, I think that would be very doable. It's been a good market, but it is the problem now is for so many, first home buyers and things like that. The market, what was 350 3 years ago, now has a 6 at the front of it. And they're rubbish. They're crap. They're chrome brick in the southern suburbs, right? Nothing great about them, but they're now, 250K more than they were 2.5 years ago.
That's exactly what's happening in Perth at the moment with the likes of Rockingham and Copenhagen and those sorts of shots. Cool. All right, so look, you've transitioned. You obviously started in flips a long time ago, and then you've gone into more development.
Not that long ago. Ease up. God,
10 years ago. Let's go back to the start. I want to know. I think I know. Like, I remember you telling me you sat in a seminar, but let's, for everyone listening, who is probably sitting there going, how the hell has she done like that many
How to
deals?
do that.
70,
Yeah.
70
Okay, so
deals.
background was always in business. I'm from a small business family, so I've always loved business and numbers and stuff like that. I was a journo, not an ambulance chaser. I was a finance journo. Went into corporate PR, had my own consultancy, and then hit 40 and sort of make the joke, 40-year-old men go and get a mistress and a sports car. I had my midlife crisis was wanting to go into property. Scott was an agent at that time. He'd been a real estate agent for about 5 or 6 years. So as I said, learnt from a guy here in Adelaide. He specialised in doing 2-bedroom units all sort of through Glenelg, which is sort of premium beachside suburb here. I think he's renovated half the units in Glenelg. So, did a weekend course with him, did a 2-bedder ourselves, did okay with it. My main thing was to see whether I liked it, whether I would actually want to do this. I enjoyed it, and then went to a seminar in a property group that you and I are very familiar with. And that was very much around sort of buying property off market, buying below market value, renovating, flipping it, and sort of creating, the uplift through that. So signed up for that. I did that course, signed up for the mentoring, had a great mentor, and then sort of hit the ground running pretty quickly. And through that group, very lucky to be introduced to a money partner. He was another Adelaide guy, cash rich, time poor. So he was good. So we sort of found off letters, found a deal within, I think, 6 weeks. I got my first deal from starting. So a bit slower than you, because I think you had a deal as you were starting up. And that worked really well. We bought super well. And that worked. And so we just sort of kept building that up. And then what I did over the course of about 18 months, and I do suggest a lot of people like, I just want to quit my day job. And it's like, no, don't do that. I've always talked about, I gradually wound down my PR firm as I was ramping up property to then the point I could go, okay, I ended all my contracts with my PR clients and went into property. And I also became a coach at that time as well. So, we just kept on growing then. I think, money partners have certainly been key to a key part of our success. So we sort of, went from doing 1 at a time to doing 2 at a time. And then, we do 7 in a year. And I'm not sure what year it was, but our biggest year, we did 17 flips in 1 year, which in hindsight, I'm not sure what I was smoking, but I'm glad I stopped smoking it because that was just nuts. That was nuts.
You would have been pretty exhausted, eh?
Yeah. So I tend to do that. I tend to do I'm a bit of an all or nothing. That's the North personality, right? A bit of an all or nothing. Go hard or bugger off. So did that. So very much, got to coach. I got a bit of a profile. I got to speak on stage and that a fair bit, which was great. I really loved that. That was, I'm very grateful for that opportunity. So good money partners, and then obviously started to build up our own cash reserves. And then, did that for quite a while, and then sort of started to, and I call it the evolution of the renovator. It seems to happen a lot that people start out flipping and they love it, and then they kind of get into chunkier projects, and then they go, oh, look at those developers over there. They're not on site, and although I know you don't go on site, but they're not on site and they're not doing demo. They're driving around in an Amarok drinking coffee in a puffer jacket. That looks like fun. So, I guess it's kind of, then we sort of educated ourselves increasingly on developing and how that looked. And moved into that space and have kind of embraced that. So I think we'll always renovate. Like, I don't think I'll ever give it up. There is something very fulfilling. It's one thing to have a piece of dirt and build 7 or 9 or whatever, but it's something else to have something that's a total piece of crap that most people think needs to be renovated with a bulldozer. And you actually turn it into something pretty cool. There's something quite fulfilling about that.
For sure. So I know you've gone more into structural renos as well, but just before we get to that, with the cosmetic stuff, so like tell me, like for people who are starting out, how did you choose your area of expertise? Like how did you choose, where you're going to flip property? How did you choose your price point? How did you choose that stuff to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, but where am I going to start? How did you do that?
So there's a lot of stuff that you talk about regularly with your reels. So sort of chose an area. It was always socioeconomic because there was a lot of shitty houses through there, let's be honest. You could buy them, you could buy well, you could add value. You knew you were always going to have buyers. There were always going to be first home buyers, investors or whatever in those markets. close to home. So it just worked. We had good agent relationships. It was close to drop letters. It kind of ticked all the boxes really of those.
Yep.
So we did that. And then I guess as we got further advanced, we felt more comfortable in being able to go further and further. There's obviously area expert, absolutely. But also I think once you've got your sort of property fundamentals under your belt, you can also fairly quickly look at new areas and pretty well work out, okay, who are the buyers, what's the demographic, what are the good pockets to be in, what price point do I need to be buying? So then that gave us scope to then go a lot broader, so to go to different areas. So, and it wasn't, so it was very much a cosmetic, get in, they generally had horrible kitchens, horrible bathrooms. So do all that, rip up the old, cat pee stained carpet and put, floating floors down, tidy up the garden a bit. So it wasn't lipstick on a pig stuff, but it was enough that, and so for most people, they came in and it was kind of the best of all worlds, right? So in an established suburb, got all the sort of facilities and infrastructure and things like that, but effectively a brand new interior, still on a good size block, and that market had a lot of tradies and things like that. So it often had a good size block. It had a shed, so they could be putting their trailer and their tools and stuff in like that. So it just worked really well. And look, we weren't making, there was no one deal that was life-changing money by any means. Sort of back then, 40, 50, 60 was kind of pretty well the norm of what we were making. But similar to what you do, we were in and out 6 to sort of 8 weeks. It was done. It was back on the market. And, we're buying and selling in the same market, which, can be, if you're in a bit of a tumultuous time, that's a good way to go. So it's just a formula that worked really well. So as they say, why mess with the formula, so to speak, if it's working. So it did. But then I guess like everything, you kind of grow yourself as a property person and you go, yep, that's great. But I'm kind of, just, it can get a bit boring after a while. I think after we're
just doing the same cosmetic
50 in, that's right. And we were at that stage, we had a storage facility. So we just had pallets of everything. We had pallets of the tiles we were using. We had pallets of the floorboards. We had dozens of the taps there ready to go. So it was good. So it wasn't overly taxing intellectually or anything, but I actually get bored fairly quickly. I do, I do have a bit of bright, shiny object syndrome. So there was after a while, then like, oh, really? So we're just buying another shitter and doing that tile and that kitchen and that. So that's where I guess we start to go, okay, well, let's, do we go into bigger type renos or do we go down the path of, subdividing and developing?
Yeah, but what you've just spoke about, so you, the people listening, you were like literally running it as a business. Like that's why you had the shed with all the tiles and the floorboards and everything like that. For you, it was, 50 grand profits, but you were running it as a business. So, if you did, 7-10 a year, there was, potentially 500K profit from flipping.
That's right.
Whatever. That's how you.
And I think that's always been one of our strengths. I think that's the benefit of having been a business journo, coming from a small business family. Like I just like the way business works. Intrigued, and I like the idea of make them. I'm probably the classic Nort. I like the idea of making something and building something, but then I tend to want to go, I'm bored with this now. Okay, you take care of it. Here you go. I'm a very good delegator. But I think that's what we did really well from the outset, that we always ran it as a business. And I've coached people over the years, and they're using their personal credit card, and 1 minute they've paid for the groceries at Woolies, while the next minute they've paid for their Renault gear, and it's all receipts everywhere, and it's all so from the get-go we ran it very clean, very separate, even to the point when Scott was selling everything, it was his company would invoice Rainmaker, and Rainmaker would pay him. It wasn't just doing that for free. It always had to stack up, like the comms had to be paid, because if that's
good for serviceability, right?
Yeah,
that would have been good for serviceability, to help you get loans and all that sort of stuff as well. That's right.
So we've always had a fortnightly wage. We've always had super paid, all those. And I'm super organised. And I have Linya, who's our bookkeeper and has worked with Scott and I forever. But we run zero accounts for all our big projects, separate bank accounts. When money comes in, I put money away for tax and that. I'm really pretty focused like that. So I think that's served us well. Like you say, that we could just then. It was easy, I guess, to kind of scale up pretty quickly.
But who would, when you're obviously running it as a business, so who was on your team? So obviously, you, but you mentioned that you had, like a PA or something like that?
We've done a bit of everything over the journey. So we started off like everyone, everything was subcontracted out. And then, so at one stage I had a person who was my PA and also kind of like a buyer for us.
Yep.
And then at one stage I actually did have an in-house project manager, an in-house carpenter, and an in-house site manager. The thinking was there that we'd be quicker, we'd be more efficient, we'd be more cost effective, and we weren't any of those things. So then suddenly my time frames are blowing out, the budgets are blowing out, I've got all these wages and things like that. And then, of course, one of the boys, would have an accident on site. So then you've got work cover. And I just went, this is bollocks. And ended up having a staff member then went out on stress leave or whatever. And I got the shits on, basically. So changed the model. Sorry, guys. Redundancy. And went back to external. So you know what? One thing I think, I'll never die wondering. Like I give stuff a go, right? So in hindsight, it didn't work, but at least I know, because I thought that was a way of, when we're doing that many projects, I thought that was a better way, but it wasn't. So now I know. So we just went straight back to all the subbies and got budgets back on budget and back on time and far less head fluff, can I say?
Cool. So when you started out and you were doing obviously, year in, year out, you're doing all the cosmetic flips. Did you have a goal each? Like, let's say, for example, you did 7 your first year and then you did 10 or whatever. It was every year like a competition. Like, I know what you like. So it was every year like a competition that you had to do more the next year, or was it?
Yeah, totally. And that was just, and that's not me trying to be a dickhead show off or anything. I just like to push myself. Like it's just, and so then I'd get on stage. And I'd do something like, oh, right, so we're going to do 10 next year. And then, and you'd hear everyone go, and I'd get off the stage and I was in Sydney and ring Scott at home, we're doing 10 next year. And he's like, oh, shit, really? Like, yeah, let's go. I did a crazy thing back in COVID. I announced that I was going to do 5 deals in 5 weeks.
I remember hearing about this.
Yeah, so 5 deals in 5 weeks. And so we sent out 9,595 letters that month, Linya and I. So printed letter, signed, handwritten envelopes. And we ended up getting 7 deals in 5 weeks.
Crazy.
Off market and on market. And I guess, so that's just for me, it just keeps reminding me what we're capable of. Like I think we often set low limits for ourselves. Sure. Look, I was sweating bullets, like it was all I thought about. I dreamt about it. Like I was totally obsessed with it. It would have been an absolute pain in the ass at home. Plus I had a sore hand because Linya and I were just writing these envelopes out because I believed in the handwritten envelopes. And I wasn't going to deviate from the formula. But like what a buzz to then rock up and they go, so how'd you go, Kaz? And I got 7. Like they're like, what? So that was the sub. That's just fun. Sorry.
Yeah. That was the land subs, wasn't it? Like that was.
It was everything. Yeah, we had.
I thought. Weren't you just? I thought that at that time you were targeting the land subs. No,
it was everything.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So there's some land in there. There was a couple of renos. It was a bit of So it just keeps. And that's why I see people get frustrated and things like that. It's like you just got to keep rocking up. That's the only difference between people who do really well in what we do and people who don't is I think it just comes down to people just keep rocking up. 2 words, persistent and consistent, So even when you're not getting the calls, even when the agents aren't really bringing you stuff, it's just, he who just keeps rocking up and smiling and dialing for the longest gets the deal.
Mindset.
Totally. And I've just seen it dozens of times over in all the people I've coached and people I've been in property communities and things like that. That's the only difference. And I just think that's what serves me really well. I think what serves you very well is I think we're just very single-minded.
Yeah. Well, why? What do you reckon it is? I mean, why is it that some people are successful at this, but more people are not? Like, you obviously you said you've coached a lot of people. What is it that you see in some people that you don't in others that determines, why?
Few things. I think, like you've touched on before, I think the importance of viewing it like a business. I think too many people are frustrated interior designers or frustrated architects, right? And I've always wanted to do, it's my life. And they just get so immersed in colours and style and things like that. Like, I'm not a great renovator. I'm a pretty good renovator, but there's a lot more people than me that've got a much better eye and much better style and design and things like that. Absolutely. And I don't have a problem with that. Happy once I kind of get a formula, you just keep going with that bad boy. But so I think it's those who don't treat it like a business. They do treat it like a bit of a hobby. I'm going to dabble in. I had a chick once start coaching with me. She said, I want to dabble in property. I'm like, well, I'm not sure why I'm your coach, because we don't dabble. We don't dabble on Team Kaz. We go hard. So I think there's that. Not valuing their time, not valuing their money. Like, I think where a lot of people go wrong is they don't realise the opportunity cost of doing a deal yourself. So I think I've often said, I think one of the worst things you can do is actually be a trade or quite handy and go into this, because you want to do everything yourself. And I've had coaching clients that are builders, right? So they want to do everything else. And so they'll do a deal and they'll sell it and they go, we made 80K profit. And I go, bullshit, you did. And they're like, what? I mean, you didn't make 80K profit. You worked 100 hours a week on that for like 20 weeks. So work that out. You probably got a wage equivalent to if you worked at Macca's. So I just don't think people, and I think I used to be a consultant where we were on the clock, right? Like lawyers, hourly rate. So every, 6-minute increments. So I think that really helped me to understand the value of time and value my time. So like even now, why would I go on site and, do a bit of landscaping or a bit of demo or whatever, when I can get someone in to do that for 40, 50, 60 bucks an hour, my time is better spent looking for the next deal. That if it's a cosmetic reno, it might still be 50 or 60, but if it's a development deal, it might be $600,000 or $700,000, $800,000. Why spend a day doing something that I can pay someone $500 to do? So
I won't even do the landscaping at my own house, let alone
well, there we go. Yeah, right. Because you'd rather be. So it's also doing what you'd rather be doing, but what you're good at. Like I'm good at finding deals. Like I just seem to have a good hit rate. For every offer, I put in 10 offers. I probably get 6 or 7 of them. It just seems to just the way on market stuff. So I just think, so back to it, so not treating it like a business, not valuing their time, wanting to be their passion project and everything to be perfect and amazing, and I think you said, sometimes kind of, close enough, especially for your investor market, different with home buyers, and particularly obviously different when you start selling stuff at 2 million and 3 million. But for a lot of that lower stuff, it doesn't have to be. I remember Lizzie once said to me, she learnt that she needs to stop doing a Rolls Royce reno when a Commodore reno will do.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. Sure.
And I thought I had a good laugh out of that and went, that's exactly right. That's where I think we've all probably gone wrong. And I think you've talked about this, and I know I did. Sometimes I just did stuff that actually didn't need to be done that well, to be honest.
If it's already the best house in the suburb with the Commodore reno, why do you need to do the?
That's right. Yeah, exactly right. So I think that's what's kind of always served as well. So I think that's where people go wrong. They don't persevere. They send one lot of letters. They go to opens for 3 or 4 weeks. They make a few offers. They don't get anything over the line, and then they go, "Oh, this sucks. This doesn't work. It's shit."
Yeah, a lot of people do. They're in their own head.
Totally.
They just you talk to people and then they just start telling you why it's not going to work. It's like, well, it's definitely not going to work now.
Oh, and I bet you get it all the time, right? I bet you get people all the time saying, "Oh, you can't flip in Australia, you can't flip in Perth. There's no money in it." Yeah, heard it all before, mate. That's cool. You keep going over there. You keep grinding away on your PAYG, and I'll just be over here having some fun and making a bit of money and proving that you can do it. So it's all mindset. It's totally about what you choose to do. And as much as it drives my 17-year-old son Lockie mad, like, dude, you've always got a choice, right? You've got a choice every day how you spend your time, what mindset you're going with, what attitude, what you do to work towards your business. And that's the difference between those who do well and those who don't. It's 99% of it. It's between it's this real estate that matters the most, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I mean, the timing at the moment with what's going on in the world is, I think it's, every time, you just have to look at the news or the radio, and it's, inflation and, cost of living and all that sort of stuff. But like you said, like, a lot of people, you hear the sob stories, and I get it, it's hard for people out there at the moment, but it's like a lot of people just not prepared to do more. Like, they've got the job. I've got a career, I'm a nurse, I'm a teacher, I'm this, but I can't live. It's like, well, you need to do more than that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
So
right.
that's, some people will just, will just keep pushing, and other people, and until they get what the life that they want. And other people would just sit back and say, oh, it's, because they don't want to work more than a 38-hour week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
which is totally cool. If you don't want to, that I totally respect that. Not everyone has, this mad desire like people like you and I do. I totally get that. But then equally, you get what you're getting back what you put in, right? Like I know when I transitioned, a lot of people talk about how do you make that transition. I've got the full-time job, I've got, the partner, I've got 3 kids, etc. And I found that too. Like when we started out, Lockie was still only little. I had my business. I had a couple of subcontractors working for me. PR is very deadline orientated because you've got deadlines for journos or for clients and things like that. So like in those early days, I would get up at 4 a.m. to do 3 hours of property before my day started.
Yeah.
So that was, I was on RP data, I was doing letters or whatever, and then at 7, then, Lockie and Scott got up, and then the day started, and then I would work or whatever. And I work better in the morning, but at night I might just stuff envelopes or something. But generally at night I like to have a glass of wine, so I'm not going to do amazing work at 10 o'clock at night. It's just not how I roll, but I'm good in the morning. So I just would get up at 4 and do 3 hours, So, it was hard work. Was I tired and grumpy? Yeah. But as I said, I got, after we started coaching and then in that program, we got our first deal in 6 weeks. So
and it doesn't take that many deals to to replace your income. So
no,
what would you say? People say, how do you go full time? What would be like? I've given my advice on how do people do it. What would be your advice to someone who's starting out and they want to go full time property? Let's say what do they need to do to be able to go full time?
The first word I would use is transition.
Yep.
Okay, so let's not burn the bridges and go, right, I'm doing this, right, get stuff, boss, here we go. I would be like, it's like I did, like, do you even like it? Like, not everyone's built for this, right? Some people, and I've seen it, some people go, yeah, I want to be a flipper, cool. And they do the first one, they go, oh, this kind of sucks. Yeah, okay, not your cup of tea. So you don't want to find that out after you've told the boss to go jump, right? So, I'd suggest you do your first one, take annual leave or whatever, try and line up your annual leave with your settlement so you can kind of be around and really work out, do you like it? Can you do it? Is this what you want to be doing? And kind of get a few under your belt. So over time, so, I guess if you could do 1 or 2 in your first year, and, bank some 50s and 60s, hopefully you get to the point where you've sort of got like a year, 12, 18 months worth of kind of living in the bank.
Yep.
And sort of you built your team, you've got your area expert, you kind of got your formula happening, this is what you want to do, you can make it work, then you might look. And even then I'd still say, well, if you could perhaps transition down to part-time work for 6 months, keep up your serviceability, get your best borrowing capacity as you can, do all those sorts of things before you then, and be talking to your accountant along the way. I'm still flabbergasted how many people want to be a flipper and they've never spoken to their accountant about it. So they've got no concept about what structure, what's involved, how they need to make it work. So, be getting really good in that period, build up your A team of your trades, but also build up your A team of a great mortgage broker, a good accountant, things like that.
Yeah. I know when I started with you, I went full-time after 3 months, but I think, if you want to do it as a business, like once you go full-time, then, you've got way more time to obviously, do a lot more.
Chicken and egg for sure. But, equally what I often see too, Graham, is you might be all gung-ho, but you might have a spouse in the background who's going, what? So sometimes just for peace at home, I think there's also merit in transitioning, because you might be all in and this is amazing and this is the best thing ever, but it's probably scaring the living crap out of your other half.
Yeah, that's a good point. So how that's something that I I'm obviously I was very lucky. My wife's very supportive, and she whatever I want to do, she's no worries, you just do it. And I think now I've got the runs on the board for her to be okay with that. But a lot of people starting out, like there's there's that arm wrestle, I suppose, where one partner really wants to do it and they
That's
want to take the chance and then they want to, get ahead in life. And then the other person is like, oh, let's just stay with our, our jobs and our safe, safe salary. And, we're never going to be rich, or we're never going to get the overseas holidays that we want in Europe and that. But, let's just play it safe.
But we're comfortable. Oh, hugely. And I saw, having coached as many people as I have over the years, there were instances where this ended up kind of calling a halt to the marriage. Yeah, because this was a catalyst, right? Because one's going, and it was both males and females, but say, one's saying, really want to do this is my passion, and the other one's that, no, we'll lose the house, we'll lose everything. I don't know how many times I heard that. Like, how can you lose everything on a reno? Anyway, we'll lose everything. It's a catastrophe. And so this person's actually going, you know what? I don't want to keep going on this life journey with you. So I've seen marriages end. When they've gone into something like a coaching program, or sadly, I would often see, and that's sad in itself, of course, but often sadly, I would see people dip out, and they would be like, you know what, my other half doesn't support this, and even to the point, there's not supporting, and then there's almost like quite blatantly almost undermining, and them almost making demands around, well, it's this, or it's our marriage, or you're renovating type thing. And
imagine how much you would resent them if they said that. Like,
hugely.
Like if I have to stay in a job I hate because you want to play it safe.
Because you don't want to be outside of your comfort zone. Absolutely. And that's it's what we touched on before. There's a lot of people living, and when I say this, I don't mean it in a condescending way, but they're playing small, right? They're living a small life because it's safe and it's comfortable. So for me, what I love, I think, I get asked a lot, what's my why? And obviously, in coaching and stuff, as you know, and personal development, a lot of it is, what's your why? So a big part of my why is two things. I talk about living a big life. And so that's not an arrogant life. That's not driving, a $250,000 car or anything like that. A big life to me means that you've got choices and you've got options and you've got time, right? So it means that if you want to go on holiday, you might still choose to go stay in a cabin at the caravan park down on the beach, or you might choose to go to Europe for a month. But if you choose, if you go to the caravan park, it's because you chose it. It's because you wanted that holiday, not because it was the only thing that you could afford to do. So that's, to me, what a big life is, that you've got choices. And, that's a big part I love about what we do is I get to choose how I spend my time. If I want to go to Bali for a week next week, I don't need to see how much annual leave I've got. I don't need to see if the boss is okay with that. All I need to do is just jump on, find some flights, find some accommodation, and find someone to go with.
And you almost live in Bali now anyway.
Yeah, well, that's true too. But so, you get to do that. So that's, to me, and then tied in with that is legacy as well. So, it's like the oxygen mask theory. The more successful you are, the more you can do for other people. So you can leave more of a legacy for your own children, or you can contribute more to society. You've got more time for volunteering. You've got more money to be able to sponsor things that you're passionate about and things like that. So, I feel sad for people who, because a lot of people say to me, oh my God, your life is my dream life. And I go, oh, that's funny, because they're not the ones lying there at 2 a.m, marinating how much debt they've got and how behind that things are on schedule and how over budget we are. But, I guess that's a reward for taking on that risk. And often I'm still really uncomfortable. Even 10 years on, sometimes I go, oh, I'm not sure if I'm cut out for this, right? And that lasts for about 10 minutes, and then I slap myself around their face and get back on.
Yeah.
But the trade-off is you take a lot of risk, you've got a lot of responsibility, millions of dollars, money partners, things like that. Sad things happen, money partners pass away in the middle of projects. There's a lot of moving parts. But the trade-off for that is you get to do some pretty cool stuff, and you get to choose how you live your life, and you'll hopefully get to earn some money to kind of live the life that you want to live.
Just on what you've touched on. A lot of people, we're conditioned to what we need to do in life. Yeah, like we go to school, then you go uni, potentially we'll get a trade, and then you go get a job.
Get a good job.
Yeah, a good job, which is like there's not that many good jobs out there that are going to give you the life that you want. So, totally. So one of my why is to help. We'll show my kids that there's another way than the bullshit that you get told
Absolutely.
school and all that sort of stuff. So.
Well, I've just seen a great story this week on Facebook, someone that was in the community that you and I were part of, and she's introduced her grandson.
I saw that today.
Yeah. So he's like 18, 19, working one day a week, and he's helped her to snaffle a very good, by the sounds of it, a very good deal. And so I think, how cool is that? And I love that. Like, Lockie's heard me do this for 10 years and heard me coach. And I think just by osmosis, we'll have family conversations that, we'll sit around and talk about, capital gains tax, or GST, or and it's interesting, he's heading down a path of studying accounting and business and maths, and kind of wants to go into that sort of analysis type thing. So I think that's one of the best things you can do, is like you're doing with your 3 boys and this lady that we talked about with her grandson, and hopefully I'm doing the same thing, that you can show them that there is another way, right? Like I'd be thrilled if Lockie never had a real job, and had his own business or joined our business or whatever, and never worked a day in a real job. I'd be thrilled at that.
Yeah. Imagine, like, let's say, they finish high school and then they want to go, traveling for a year or something like that. And it's like, oh, well, I need some money to do it. It's like, well, okay, let's do a flip. I'll show you how to do a flip. And the money, profit you make from that, then, you can take yourself fucking wherever you want to go.
Totally. One of our, someone else that used to be in our community, she did that with her son. He's a chippy. And so that's what they did. They did a flip, and he put money in, and what he got out of it was then his deposit for his first house.
Perfect.
So, where he would have, how many years would have he had to been grinding away, on the tools for hours a day for years on end, and he made it in 3 or 4 months doing a flip with his mum and dad. So how cool! Like I wish I knew, like, what I know at 50. Like if I knew that at 20. It'd be different. I wouldn't be here.
It's I think a lot had to be said. Like, some people that are just, it's served up on a platter for them. They just don't have that drive to keep doing it. But people like, I know me, for example, and I don't know what your background is, but I'm guessing, it might not be too dissimilar. But when you don't grow up with everything, it just makes you motivated as all hell to to change, I suppose, and have what you didn't have, sort of thing. So
I had a comfortable childhood, but my dad was one of those old schools. If you didn't work 80 hours a week, you were soft. And that was his. And he didn't want to retire until he was like 70 or odd, and he could have retired years before. And I'm like, what? Because that's his identity, right? It's just first one there in the morning, last one to leave at night. That was his badge of honor, and I don't diss that, but it's certainly not the life that I wanted. And that's why, I like, to be able to go like, let's just go out for lunch, go for a drive, and go out for lunch and go to a winery, and just be able to do stuff like that. So still working hard, and they're still always doing stuff, but, working hard, I might sit down for 3 hours, find a deal, and then can take the rest of the day off, right? So I'm always working hard, because I guess I'm always, and I think you'd be very similarly, always thinking about it, right? You're always thinking about, what can I do next? How can I do it better? How can I do it more? You're doing all that, but it doesn't mean working hard doesn't mean you have to be working 80 hours a week.
I've been working a few hours at the moment, but But
you got a bit on, right? You got projects, you got coaching, you got you're rolling out a course. There's a lot happening. Which is great, but you love it too, though, right? And anytime you don't like it, for you, I would imagine it'd be like the same as me. Anytime it starts to become a chore, you don't enjoy it, well, then you'll cut something out.
100%. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. It's all, when you're enjoying it, it's easy, right? It's easy to do it because you want to do it. But, for me, like, I hated having to work for a boss. Like, I absolutely hate being told what to do. So, I
remember the few months that I was coaching you that you were working, you were grinding away. Like, it couldn't come quickly enough. I must admit, you pulled the pin quickly, but you could, right? You already had, I think by that stage, you already had a couple of runs on the board. You were already really building a pipeline. You had really good practices. And that's, I think really important too, is to have those practices and procedures in place, right? So, and the repetition, as I said, sometimes people send 100 letters, go out to opens for a month, make 6 offers, don't get anything over the line, and just go, this sucks. So I'd be like, okay, well, when did you send a follow-up letter? I wanted a function a while ago, and I met a guy, and he got a deal over the line after he sent 6 letters, which I thought was really interesting, right? Because often a lot of the school of thought is you send 3 letters. You send it every few months or every month. A 3-letter process is kind of an accepted. But this guy, no, he sent quarterly. So, it took him like a year and a half, but it was on the 6th letter that he got the deal.
That's pretty much what I do. So
right.
I just have my areas, and some of them would have
just keep sending. Yeah,
because for me, I know the suburbs that I'm working, and you still get phone calls. Surprisingly, it's still So
you can get phone calls years later, right? I've had stuff where you've gone and it's stuck on their fridge with a fridge magnet, or I had someone said they had used it as a bookmark for ages, right? And then 2 years later they're ready to sell. So it is that just constant repetition. I think is the difference between. That's where a lot of people sort of, I think, fall off. They just don't keep over and over again. Just keep going back. Those touch points. You spoke to the agent. When people say, "Oh, yeah, but I told the agent what I wanted." Yeah, but respectfully, because I'm married to one, agents can be goldfish too, right? So you might have told them 2 months ago that you were after a reno project. You're probably not high on their, so you need to get back in front of that person, and you can't just say, "Oh, well, yeah, but he's from Harcourts Blackwood." So have you spoken to every agent in Harcourts Blackwood? Because they're all silos. Right, and they're all goldfish in their own silos. They don't talk to each other and stuff. So you need to make sure you've spoken to every agent in that office, right? You don't just talk to one and think you've dealt with that. So it's just all those little things, just to keep constantly massaging.
For sure. I want to ask you now about the transition from the cosmetic flips when you went into the structural stuff. So I mean, just to clarify, I know obviously the cosmetic stuff was sort of more budget, lower end, but then obviously you're going to structural. All of a sudden, it's more high end. It's probably, more premium suburbs, closer to the city, old character homes, really high end stuff. But also, rather than you renovating it, you're engaging a builder to do it. So how did that transition happen for you?
Well, I guess it was always something we wanted to do, but we were very mindful. You've got to find a good builder, because not a lot of builders, not all builders want to do renos by any means, right? Renovating can be, it's a lot harder to quote. Can be a lot fiddlier. A lot of them just like the new build type thing. So I guess for us, it was like, oh, well, how do we find a builder? And then it came, as it often does, through your own network. So one of Lockie's footy coaches, really good guy, Dave. So it was actually in the midst of COVID, and we found this opportunity. An agent bought it to us off market. It was a really good suburb, a 2-bedder, and a lovely, lovely street, big block, and it just, lent itself to a box in the back. So we sort of said, okay, Dave, what do you think? So he came out and had a look, and we kind of priced it, and we got it for an insane price. So that was a tester. It's like, okay, well, let's see how this goes. And it worked pretty well. Look, there was certainly an adjustment period, because obviously for a builder who's used to doing stuff for mum and dad, home occupier, most of them don't mind if the reno takes 12 months and, come and go. Whereas obviously we were like, right, Dave, you've got, 6 months. And he's like, what? And even, we were like, 6 months, that's slow, but we know it's structural, so we'll give you that long. So there was certainly an adjustment period, and, bless Dave and Felicity, they kind of, they took it on, and, there was a little bit of, this is how it works, guys, and things like that. So, look, that worked really well. The house was great. We finished it, we sold it, we set a suburb record, and I think we made like 380K on it.
I actually remember. You actually did sold that one. I'm pretty sure. This is I think the reason why I requested you as my coach when I joined.
Okay.
Because I saw that deal. I remember you. There was a photo of you standing at the front next to the sign.
That's right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Morgan Avenue Door Park. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's right. Yeah, and so that was like, oh, okay. So this can work. We can make this work. So we rolled on. So we've not done dozens of them. I think we've done like 6 or so like that, sort of character homes. Like you say, with a few Ks.
Over the last few years. Over
the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because they take a lot longer too, right? And you've got council issues. So it's a whole different world. So it is sort of a quasi development type role. So it takes a lot longer. You obviously need a lot more funding. You've got stuff like councils and, to get all your permits and things like that. But certainly, we've tweaked it, and we found some funding. Like we used to cosmetic flips largely work off money partners and a bit of our own money.
Yep.
Because obviously mainstream banks don't like what we do. But we've got a great, also found a great new broker. So he's sort of been able to access sort of private lenders and things like that who can lend a big chunk of that initial purchase price.
Yeah.
And then we top it up with money partner funds and or some of our own money as well. And look, it just works really well, as with all cities, but, LA's got some really beautiful character homes, sandstone fronted, big, beautiful blocks, leafy streets, leafy trees and things like that. So it works. It's worked really well. But yeah, they're a much bigger, stressful, expensive beast, and you have to. So the stuff we've talked about, like cosmetic renos, doesn't have to be perfect. If you're asking for 2.5 mil, 3 mil, man, it has to be perfect, and then some. Yeah, so it's just you're obviously up-speccing everything. From your appliances to your tiles to your tapware, you're obviously buying at a much higher level. We've always worked with really good trades and who've been good at their, good quality tradesmen, but obviously that's even more important.
But if you're going through the builder, you're not using your own trades. You're just giving it to the builder.
So they're all. Although it's been a collaborative. Like Dave came to us and had most of his trades, but we brought a few of our own in as well, so that he now uses them on other projects as well. So that's been quite good. But yeah, you do have to have a right, and that's the good thing. That's what we enjoy about working with Dave too, like the feedback we get. So I reckon this is the highest compliment I can get as a renovator. Is people often say to us, "You've renovated this house as if you were renovating it for yourselves." Perfect. Yeah, so we're not doing cheap and cheerful. Even with the cosmetics, we've never done. It sort of still has to be good quality work. It still needs to be a good paint job, right? It still needs to be a good tiling job. It's kind of not, to me, that's about our integrity in what we do in business, right? Like if we're prepared to do cheap and cheerful, where else are we cutting corners? And that's not cool. Like like Adelaide's a small town, like Perth, like people know you do a crap job, it's going to get around pretty quickly. So, so it's just, it needs to be the best quality. You need to know the specs. You need to know the nuances of the buyers and things like that. So it's not for the faint-hearted. I would certainly say, like, I wouldn't certainly want to have done this, a year or two into flipping. It's sort of, we got to the stage, 50-odd flips and 8 years in that we felt we were in the right position to be able to do it. And that largely rested on having Dave and Felicity. Like if Dave pulled the pin tomorrow, it would be hard. We'd have to, work hard, I think, to find a builder to do that. Yeah. But there's something, any flips fulfilling, but when you take one of those old homes and you make it and it's that high spec, it is, it's very, very satisfying for sure.
For sure. So, I mean, talking about risk and stuff like that, but, when you're selling a property for, asking for $2.5 million for it, if you don't get 2.5 million, you only get 2.2. Like, that's, 300 grand of your profit gone. So
true, but then you should be fees-owing. I said this is where you're going for more development returns. So, like
25%. As
developers, generally kind of rule of thumb is you're looking sort of for at least 18 minimum, but more like sort of 20% returns.
Yeah.
That's sort of the returns we're looking for on reno projects. So you've got, as you said, yeah, that's great. Sucks you've dropped 300, but you know what? You were forecasting to make 7.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so, and that's, whereas, so it's again, it's about your risk tolerance and your markets and things like that. So cosmetic flips, a lot less at stake, but often the margins are a lot less thin too, right? So sometimes, and I've had people, I just want to do the first one, Kaz, I don't care. Even if I make 10 grand. And I'm like, no, mate, you don't want to make 10,000 because your money partner doesn't want to see a FISO with a 10,000 profit because it doesn't take too much to go wrong with your reno budget and or your resale, and there's nothing, there's no profit, and you've chewed in, and you don't actually have all your money ready to give back to your money partner. So, And
why would you want to put in all that effort to walk away with no profit? Do you know what I mean? You may as well wait and just find a better deal, and then
that's right. Yeah. But people get impatient, right? And that they want to get that first one. So that might be okay if you're entirely self-funding. Well, then, if you're happy with that. But generally, any money partner that knows their stuff is not going to be interested in funding a project that's got those thin margins. So, yes, as you say, you can get it wrong, but hopefully then you've also got bigger buffers in the bigger projects too.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, so with the big one, talking about the fund, people obviously wondering about, private lending and the money partners. So your would be pretty much getting sort of 65% development finance, like that sort of
That's
thing,
right.
like an equity
Yep.
one type thing, and then topping it up with
That's right.
with what you need from a money partner.
That's right, exactly, spot on. Yep. So often we'll have a deal that it's like that, some money, partner money, and we've tipped in a couple of $100K of our own as well. So good to have some skin in the game. Money partners like to see that, and just give you some buffers and stuff as well. So, but yeah, that's certainly the model. When you're buying something that's to start with, you're paying mid-high $1 millions for it. You need a lot of money partners to pull that together. Whereas if you can be 65, our amazing lender just got us one that we've just settled on, and he got a 75% LVR on that at 6.5% per annum interest, which was amazing. So that was, on a 1.4 purchase price. So that helps a lot. Otherwise, if you're needing 2.2 mil, that's a heap of money partners. And we've got a lot of money partners, but you need a lot of money partners to fund 2.2.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Now this is actually one thing I wanted to touch on before we go to some questions. So I suppose as far as actually a couple of things, learnings, what would you, for anyone sort of starting out, what sort of learnings or tips would you give anyone, if they're starting out, they're thinking about getting into this sort of space and, doing some flips, where, what would be your recommendation to anyone?
So I think all the basics, like if you're new to property, it comes down to all the fundamentals within property, right? So it's, what are the good suburbs to be in? Where is the volume? Where are properties turning over regularly? Where are there always going to be buyers? Where's the infrastructure? It's all those sorts of things. So, it's funny, the property group we were part of was very much about, get your first deal. Let's get your first deal in the first month or whatever. I would actually say, and you got there quickly and I did too, but for new players, I would say take a bit of time. Okay, take a couple of months, get some coaching, do some education, go and make sure you know which suburbs, make sure you're really comfortable that you're in the right areas, get to know those agents, because even suburbs within themselves have so many nuances. You can have, certain pockets that are much more desirable than others.
Sure.
So know all that stuff inside out, and know how it all works. Like know your FISO. As you would know, FISO is often what freaks people out. So have a look at a FISO. Do a lot of practice FISOs. Work with your coach and understanding your FISO, like your reno costs, all your costs. I'm sure you've seen it many times with new players that come along. They don't allow for all the buy costs, right? They don't allow for the sell costs. They don't allow for their holding costs, things like that. So knowing a FISO inside out, do 20, do 30 practice FISOs, run them past your coach. If you don't know what things cost, go and hang out at Bunno's for a day, right? Get some trades in and get some quotes on your own house. What's it cost to paint this 3-bedroom house? Stuff like that. So take the time.
I actually just had one of my students actually just said a couple of days ago that that's what he was doing. Like, and I thought, why didn't I think of that? But yeah, using his own house to get all the trades to come in and quote everything up. I thought, that's a good idea. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So take the time, and I'm not saying take 3 years. But take 3, 4, 5 months to do all those things, so then it's not so daunting. So then you can, like I remember, coach people and that, it took me 2 days to do my FISO. I'm like, what? How does it take you 2 days to do a FISO? And then when you get to the stage where you're almost, and I think you said it, you don't even really have to do a full FISO, but you're just running it in your head. But you want for those guys to be able to sit down and quickly be able to do a FISO in sort of 15 minutes, jump on RP data. If you've been watching your suburb and that for long enough, you know when it's a good opportunity because you go, far out, that's well under. So do it so it's become second nature. The first one is always going to be your biggest learning. You can do all the courses in the world, have all the coaching. Nothing is more insightful than doing that first project.
Cool.
Don't do it for a $10,000 profit.
Definitely not. All right, cool. So, awesome. So tell us about your passion project, what we were just chatting about before.
So I really love Bali. It's my happy place. And as I get older and crustier, Adelaide winters are getting harder and harder to tolerate. So I spend much of winter grumbling and complaining and having my bum parked in front of the heater. So, so I guess this is what we talk about, I guess, about living a big life and being able to have choices and things like that. So we secured a site in Seminyak, which is kind of a key Bali area, just under 500 square metres, and we're building a large villa on there. So 4-bed, 4-bath, big pool, spa, day bed, etc. And so that's kind of for lifestyle and happiness, happy wife, happy life for Scott.
Yep.
But then they're also actually quite financially lucrative. So, they probably can rent it out for $600-700 a night. So depending on how much I'm allowed to stay there, it pays for itself sort of within 6, 7, 8 years. So, which is good. So yeah, the idea is once Locke's finished year 12 next year, we'll spend winters there. I mean, that's the great thing about what we do, laptop lifestyle, right? So you can be in Bali. It's 2.5 hours time difference between Adelaide and Bali. So you can be doing stuff, you can be working on projects, and still be having your nasi goreng and having your swim and having a couple of bintangs. So so they'll start construction on that in the new year. So in an ideal world, we'll have Christmas there next year. If not, then we'll be there early 2025. So that's sort of very much a passion project.
Very nice. Very jealous of that.
You'll get there. You should go while your little ones are young. They're easier. Just get a nanny, Graham.
Oh yeah, my wife would not be okay with that. But
wouldn't she? Okay, you have to work on it.
Exactly. All right, let's have a look at a couple of questions from some people. Let's have a quick look. Actually, they're not even questions. People are just agreeing with you.
Oh, are they?
We've got Liz, 100%. Not sure what she's saying 100% to. Karen taught me so much about the fundamentals. What she says is gold. Couldn't agree more. Running your reno as a business is fun, but it isn't a hobby. So that's Liz again. Okay, there's not too many questions there. More just let's see what we had from the Facebook thing. Why were you choosing flipping rather than renting them out and keeping them? And I know you do keep properties, but
let's get asked that a lot. I think you get asked that a lot too now, don't you?
I do, yeah.
So for us, flipping's always been for cash flow, right? Flipping kind of replaced PR consulting income, replaced Scott's largely wound right down from real estate selling, replaced that. So, got to pay private school fees and braces and, $300 weekly food shops for 2 bags of shopping these days. So it was always sort of for cash flow. Often they were in areas that we didn't really want to be holding them anyway. And we've sort of, what I've been taught then move as a developer is much more about do a project, you build 5, 6, 7, you sell 4, you keep the 5th one freehold, right? And that's what we're increasingly doing. So the goal is sort of pretty well from every development project we do now. So if you look at what in recent years, we've got a couple of blocks that we're going to put some you guys call them HMO in Perth, but co-living rooming houses. We've got a couple of blocks like that. We've just got a student accommodation we're keeping from one project. So the idea is sort of in the next few years to have a really strong portfolio, but that will come from our development stock where it's a brand new and you've got all those depreciations, and they're sort of more in areas that I think will have better capital growth too.
Cool. Awesome. Now, you pretty much touched on your why, didn't you? You said, obviously, the big life.
Big life and legacy. Yeah.
And legacy. Okay, awesome. The question that we always get daily, how capital gains tax, but how do you minimise stamp duty? You can't minimise stamp duty, but
yeah.
Maybe.
The question can I say, guys, this obsession, I hear it all the time. I'm not picking on people in this group. I see it in every property group. I've seen it at seminars. This whole minimised tax thing. Yes, no one wants to pay more tax than what they're, but there's a certain amount you have to pay, and there's a certain amount, the privilege of being wealthy is you get to pay tax as well. So as you say, you can't minimise stamp duty. It's state tax. It's totally tied to the value of your property. It's in your fees, though. Be comfortable with it. It's a cost of doing business. GST, well, not accountant's advice. Depending on the types of projects you're doing, you shouldn't have GST on a lot of projects. When you start to get to some other bigger projects and certainly developing, there is GST, but that you should be working with your accountant to manage and be on top of all that. And capital gains tax, again, not accounting advice, but if you're a flipper and set up as a business and things like that, you shouldn't be paying capital gains tax, you'd be paying income tax on the profits you make from your projects, which I think is now 25%. So again, if you don't have a good property focused accountant on your A team, well then go and find one before you do a thing, because you get it wrong at the outset can cost you to unwind afterwards. So no one enjoys paying tax, but it also, if I think about how much stamp duty I've paid on 76 deals, I feel like I should be getting a trophy or something from the government. And I got a big land tax bill last week, and I did have a bit of an adult tantrum for 5 minutes. But it just goes with the territory, right? It's what goes with property. It's we're not selling widgets, we're buying and selling property, and that's kind of just goes with the deal.
Great advice. What would you recommend flipping in northern suburbs of Adelaide?
There's a lot of northern suburbs. So again, but you be the area expert. Even as a coach, Graham, you'd be telling your guys it's not for you to know their suburbs, right? It's for them to know their suburbs. So, the main thing is the disparity there between the renovated and the unrenovated. That's the biggest sort of starting point, because often in hot markets, there'll be a much smaller gap and there's just not enough there. So you need to be in those suburbs where there's plenty of stock, it's turning over, you've got good volumes, but you've also got that good gap between renovated and unrenovated.
Cool. And look at the data if that helps, because some suburbs are performing better, and if if you can drive some growth as well. If you send letters,
I know you're a big believer. There's lots of good reports around. There's good commentators. There's good data analysts. Spend a bit of money on some data to see where you should be.
100%. Yep. If you send letters, how do you know what the internals of the house look like before you make an offer?
Well, you don't. So you never make an offer. Never make an offer on the phone. The purpose of the letter is always to get a meeting with the homeowner, so that you can go in, you can actually eyeball the property, but you can also build that rapport with the homeowner, understand their drivers, try and work a deal that taps into their motivators, but that also works for you. So you don't. It might be some photos if it's sold previously on RP data. Send the letter. Don't overthink it. Don't make an offer over the phone. Always be looking to get a meeting with the homeowner.
100%. How do you systemize your renos?
So I guess you sort of have, and I guess you're probably the same, pretty well a formula in terms of, as I said, these are the tiles we use, these are the floorboards, this is the kitchen, these are the taps, etc. So you sort of have that. You're always setting up, we set up a schedule for the project. We set up the budget. We brief the trades. We use the formulaic kind of stuff we've got. I think that's probably pretty well as much as you can. Anything to add to that, Graham?
No, I'm just listening to you.
Yeah. I think that's pretty well. And then obviously systemize within how often you send letters. It's pretty common for coaches to say to the people, okay, well, what's your KPI? You've got to get out. I always used to be minimum of 100 letters a week. You should be going to at least 6 or 7 opens. You should be doing at least half a dozen FISOs and putting in a couple of offers. So having, I think, regular goals and KPIs in your deal finding is one side of it, and then sort of structure and the processes and procedures then with the renos themselves.
And I think on my interview with Michelle, she sort of touched on it last week, that she has her weekly goals or KPIs that, she's just got to do that to be able to get her 7 deals a year or whatever that she's trying to do. But then as far as actual, once you sort of find, once if you've got an area of expertise, once you do a successful reno and you know what the market wants, you just want to be creating a cookie cutter model and just replicating it if you can. Because once you find the formula and it works, then you don't have to do all the thinking about, okay, what am I going to do for the next reno? What flooring am I going to put in the next one? What paint am I going to do? It's like, okay, well, this is what works. And, this is the buyer in this area. This is what they want. And I'm just going to keep delivering the same product.
Yeah. And that's easier for your trades too. If you're working with the same trades, they know that it's this formula. I know there's a time there we were using a certain grey, and I just Daniel the painter just used to say, so we're using Rainmaker Grey. It wasn't called Rainmaker Grey, it was called something else, Diescu or something. But we all just knew, if we just go and buy another palette of Rainmaker Grey. And so it makes it easier for the trades as well. And that's, I think, really important, because things can get lost in translation. Graham, would you agree? And communication is 100%. Super important with your trade. So if the more you can have that they know the formula and they know so you're eliminating, I think, the miscommunication and the scope. Mistakes and things will always happen, but you're minimising the scope for that, I think, if you've got that formula and everyone just kind of knows just this is how we roll.
Yeah, 100%. And then that's why I barely have to ever be on site on my renos because, my plumber and can just go down there first day, do disconnect, and he can just send me, this is what you need. This is the materials you need. And then I just send an email to, TradeLink, which I get my plumbing gear from. This is what I want. Then they come back, send me, the invoice, when's it going to be ready? And then, once you get your processes happening, it's really that easy. I mean, at the start, you're going to be on site all the time because you're still learning the ropes. You're coming across things for the first time and all that sort of stuff. But the more that you do, it just becomes almost second nature. And all your team know each other, so they know how each other work. They kind of start working together and saying, okay, well, they know, they know how each other works. They do.
I've had instances too where there's a new trade come in and some of the guys pulled me aside and said, oh, that new bloke he's not good. He's not doing good work. He's not doing the right thing by you. So you know what? Like good trades, no. And good trades only want to work with other good trades, right? They don't want to work with cowboys. So as you say, often, good trades will often help run your site for you.
Yeah, cool. All right, I'm mindful of your time. Obviously, it's we've been chatting for a little while, but last couple of questions. So, I'm going to say no, but do you have any scripts for yourself when interacting with the seller?
No. It's the minute you become scripted, then you become formulaic, then you become false. So no, it's all about them. Like I was going to say, you've got 2 ears. There's a reason why you've got 2 ears and only one mouth, right? So you should be listening much more than you talk yourself. So don't try and be a smart ass or be clever. Listen to them, and again, get the meeting with them, meet them on their own turf where they're comfortable, but understand what their drivers are and see if you can make something work that works for them too. I've always hated terms like lowball offers and things like that. I just find I think it's disrespectful. And I think it should be much more about working out and, making an offer that works for you and that will hopefully work for the homeowner as well.
Yeah. Very good. Do you let trades decide on the way forward on what to buy, how to install? So
it's a bit like we talked about there. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you'll know what you want to do, but obviously they are the tradesperson. So if they say, oh, look, I think we can do it this way, or, if you do it like that, that's going to be more expensive, Kaz, I'd be doing it this. So I think, like everything, it's sort of, at the end of the day, you're the project manager and it rests with you. But why wouldn't you consult? If you've got good trades, why wouldn't you tap into their knowledge and expertise?
For sure. And I mean, my handyman, for example, he's always like, Graham, you need to do this. I'm almost like, he's almost like a supervisor on site. I'm like,
you've talked about, he sounds like he's gold. Yeah, he's basically your quasi project manager, isn't he?
Well, I actually worked out, I reckon he's been on site for me, I reckon close to 30 weeks to the year. Like he's just, because if a reno goes for 5 weeks, he's on site for 3 of it. Like he's just doing the floors and he's doing, everything else. And he's just, he just does all the bits.
So he's probably doing it for half the price that you would pay like a specialist trade, right?
Yeah.
Plus, he's always your eyes and your ears. So I bet he's often saying to you, oh, not sure about this here, or someone's not done the right thing, or, so amazing. I'm sure you look after him really well, right? Because he probably saves you a heap of time and money and effort.
For sure, 100%. Cool. All righty. Okay. Really appreciate your time today, Kaz. Final question. So where to going forward for you?
I think more of the same. Like I think we've kind of got a pretty good formula with the developing. Probably I can see less structural renos. I think sort of this affordable price point is kind of where we'll go. So I think certainly the next couple of years. I think if we can sort of be doing 6-7 projects, new development projects a year. And then I'll talk to you about the 18.6 year cycle one day. But pretty well. And then probably pull back for a while. Have a lot of cash because I think there's a correction coming, and then I think there will be lots of buying opportunities coming out of that. So, but more of the same, and still keep being able to work with people, give back. I love doing stuff like this. Like I really appreciate this opportunity. So thank you. But just doing it, and I guess keep building my big life, I guess.
For sure, absolutely. Look, really appreciate it. I had to get you on, obviously, because the last few podcasts I've done, every time someone asks me, who was your one of your biggest influences. I always say it was you, because you were the person that sort of taught me what I needed to know in order to be able to go and get on the ground experience, essentially. So really,
I appreciate that. That's really lovely. And that, I'm really stoked to hear that. But can I just say, you were a machine from the day you started. Like you came on, I'm like, holy crap, this guy's insane. I remember we had our first coaching call, and I said to Hubby Scott, this guy's, he's going to nail it. So I appreciate it. They're very kind words, but you were always going to be super successful at this. And that's testament. You're a good operator and you work really hard. So you deserve what you're creating. And I think it's awesome now that you're giving back, right? And you're coaching and guiding others. So good on you for stepping up and doing that too.
Appreciate it. A lot of people always sort of compared our personalities, I suppose, because we were very similar. When I say personalities, I mean, very north, anyone that's done the disc profiling, we were, very competitive and,
pretty single-minded focus. And just a couple of bogans really from Adelaide and Perth, just getting on with it.
Just having a crack at life.
Yeah, that's it. Living big.
Awesome.
Cool. Cheers,
awesome, Kaz. Absolutely appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you for catching up with you. And
awesome.
thank you very much.
Cheers. My pleasure. Cheers, guys.